Good morning, everyone, and very warm welcome to our launch of our Carbon Literacy for Christian Congregations course. It's wonderful to have so many of you here with us. And with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Phil Corbell from the Carbon Literacy Project, who's going to give us a welcome.
Thank you so much. We launched a few things. I'm looking at this. I always knew that this was a special thing that we were starting here, but looking at the people here who've turned up for this, let me dig a bit further. Um, um, so I'm going to presume that some of you don't know what the Carbon Literacy Project is. So I'm going to just quickly introduce what we are and what might come from this project. We're a charity based in Manchester that I helped co-found 13 years ago. And we just do one thing, which is to enable people to deliver carbon literacy training, which is climate action training. It's a day's worth of climate action training that brings climate to where people are. It aligns climate action with people's existing priorities and existing values in a day's worth of learning and doing. We're doing this because I think there's a feeling that amongst many that this climate stuff is being done to people, not with people. And unless climate action is being done at scale with people, then we're not going to get there, are we, in terms of avoiding the worst that climate change is bringing? So a lot of what we do is about saying, why is this relevant to you? Don't suddenly change and become an environmentalist, whatever that means. Be you, but be aware of how climate change is going to impact on what matters to you and what is the best thing you can do about it. So we started 13 years ago. We now have certified 142,000 people, mainly in the UK, but actually across 44 nations. I am literally losing count. Thank you for the applause, Tim. Always welcome. Yeah, we've got a thing that, to put no too fine a point on it, works. People enjoy it because whatever their starting point is, there's this thing, climate change, the climate crisis, the climate emergency, that frankly, who wants to dwell on bad news and impending doom? Really, you know, if we had the chance, we'd actually let someone else deal with it. But this brings the seriousness of it home, the relevance of it home, and equips you and the people around you with the tools to do their best thing. And we have 920 plus courses. As of last week, that we're starting work with a midwifery college. So now we can say we do births, weddings and funerals, because wedding planners and funeral directors, as well as clergy, are very involved and delivering carbon literacy. So it's something for everyone. And we have this extraordinary collaborative, very sharing community that enables this stuff to travel. What you're about to do is doubly special. It's the first time that we've engaged with congregations. You might know that there's a Church of England staff course already, but this is the first time we've worked with congregations. And it's also through listening to Joe and Caroline, we're enabling you to adapt your current learning and studying collaborative approach to taking this on board. So we hope that this should land and be delivered really, really well. I remember when we started conversations about faith and carbon literacy, actually with Dean Rogers, the Dean of Manchester Cathedral, and talking about the relevance of this to faith communities in general. And yeah, we agreed there's this common strand, two really important common strands, that there's more to life than stuff, that the pushback on our obsession with material gain is so part of what we need to be doing, but also the thing that really fires me up about what this is launching is that this is values led as a course. And whatever shape it takes when you deliver this, this is going to be a course about love. And how special is that? So I just really wanted to express my enthusiasm, my welcome to you as you start this. And thank you for the interest and the work that you're going to do with us. And I think that's more than enough from me. So good luck. Thanks for everything. And can't wait to hear how it all goes. Thanks again.
Thanks, Phil. That's brilliant. That's really encouraging to hear. So as Phil said, we've been on this journey for a little while. I've been working with Caroline, who is a carbon literacy trainer and teacher and an expert in this area. And we created a course for the Church of England that was slides based and really useful for doing carbon literacy with our staff teams around our diocese. And we've delivered that training over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think training now happens in probably 30 out of 40 of our diocese. We've got people trained up who can run this course. But we realised that it wasn't really suitable for congregations. We had very sort of corporate examples and big picture examples, and we didn't have examples that worked at that church level. And also, how many congregations are going to come and turn up to death by PowerPoint? We wanted to create something that would work in the settings that exist in our churches. So lots of churches will have home groups that meet in people's homes during the week. Lots of churches will run Lent courses, or maybe they'll have PCC away days, or church council away days, that kind of thing. So we wanted to create something that would work in those settings. So Caroline has created a course that is not based on slides. It has a whole different medium of delivery, but still covers that same content with examples that work in for small groups and for churches. Then we also wanted to say, oh, this is not just the Church of England that wants to do this. Lots of denominations want to do this. So we liaised with our colleagues in other denominations and asked them to test the material and
You've just muted yourself, Joe. You're on mute.
Was I muted for all of that?
No, just that last 10 seconds.
That was my fault. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. As long as I wasn't muted for the whole of it, I'd have to start again. No, so we worked with our colleagues in the Methodist Church, in the URC. We had someone from the Greek Orthodox Church work with us. We've had contact with people in the Catholic Church. So we've had at various stages different amounts of input from a wide variety of denominations. So we really hope this material will work across the board. So it's open and available for every denomination. We felt we didn't have the expertise to say any faith. I mean, any faith is welcome to use it, but we haven't really tried to speak to different faiths because that's not our expertise. But we really have tried to speak to any Christian denomination to be able to use this course. So everyone is welcome to use it. And I'm now going to pass to Caroline to tell you how the course works, what it looks like. And then Anne-Marie from the Carbon Literacy Project will tell us how you find it, how you actually access it, and all the sort of practical logistical aspects of how you get hold of it. So Caroline.
Lovely. Thank you, Joe. I'm sorry about that. I was meeting the wrong people. So so I've had the pleasure over the last couple of years of writing this and also consulting with all of those people, all of those denominations that Joe has mentioned to write the course. And I've written quite a few carbon literacy courses, but this has been the most collaborative experience I've had and has involved, a lot of people, which I think has resulted in a really strong, robust course that should work well for everyone. So I'm just going to share some slides and talk you through the course material, what it looks like and how you make use of it. So yeah, as we said, it's really suitable for home groups. So we've got a picture of people here in a living room, but could also be used in your church building as well for a Lent course, that kind of thing. So I'm guessing that quite a few people in the room at some point have done a course in their church home group or as a Lent course or some sort of course where you've maybe had a leader's booklet and a participant's booklet. That's quite a common format, isn't it? So we went with that format because we think it really works well, and it's something that the people are very familiar with in church settings. So there's a leader's guide, which is about 30 pages long, that talks you through how to deliver the course. Then there's a slightly shorter participants booklet with information in it, but also space to write notes in as well. There's also an activity pack, which is actually a PowerPoint presentation. So you can either stick it up on a screen if you're in a church hall and have access to that, or you can print it out as an A4 activity pack for everyone to have a copy of. So it's flexible. And there are also a number of short videos to show, just a few minutes long, some that were pre-existing from a few different denominations, and a couple that we made specially for the course, and various activity cards. And I'll show you examples of those cards in a minute. So if you ask, to access the materials from Anne-Marie, that this is what you'll get. You'll also need to find for yourself a copy of the book How Bad Are Bananas by Mike Berners-Lee, and a large world map. So yeah, it would also mean that you can print out as a world map. So How Bad Are Bananas is just a really useful resource book. I often find it useful if people don't know how to quantify the impact of the actions that they agree to take at the end of the course. And we've taken statistics out of that book. So it's just a really useful one to have to hand during conversations. Okay, the map is used for an activity where you think about climate justice and ask people to just write onto the map with marker pens climate change impacts they're aware of. So it's quite a powerful way, I find, of getting people to think about climate impacts if they actually draw them on a world map. Okay. So once you've got all of your material, there are different ways of delivering it. So within the leader's guidance, there's this bit on the right hand side which I've screenshot. So it suggests you can either deliver it as 5 2-hour sessions or as 2 half days. If you are having a PCC away day and it's long enough, you could do it all in one day. Personally, I find that can be quite exhausting, but yeah, there's options there. So it's presented in 5 separate sessions, but there are different ways of dividing that up. There's also a documentary to watch at the start. I'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. And it could be an existing small group who already know each other, or it could be a group who come together especially to do this course if you've got lots of people in your church or your town who are interested in the topic. So the first session includes an icebreaker, and you can adapt that according to how well people already know each other. Okay. And to give you just a brief example of what the material looks like, these are screenshots from the leader's guide. So for each session, there's a table like the one on the left where all of the activities and topics are listed, along with how long you need to spend on them and what resources you need to have to hand. So that's a sort of at a glance, everything you need to gather to run a session. Each session is an hour and 30 minutes worth of material, but we recommend you set aside 2 hours, just because then you've got time to make coffee, have a natter before you start, or overrun by 5 minutes on one of the activities. So there's some flexibility there. And then I've just circled all or nothing game. And on the right hand side, I've screenshot the instructions for that. So underneath that table for each session, there are instructions for everything, all of the activities. So they're quite short for the all or nothing game, which is why I've used it, because it was an easy one to screenshot. Yeah, so again, it repeats how long you need to spend on it, what resources you need to have to hand, why you're doing it, what's the aim, and then some instructions. For some of the sections, some of the activities, the instructions are much longer. So you can see their science of climate change, above all or nothing, lasts for 45 minutes. So it's got much longer instructions, that are like a page and a half long. So it includes a quiz, for example, so the quiz answers are within that leader's guide. But what that means is you've got everything you need in that leader's guide to run a session. So you can read it in advance, but you can also have it to hand when you're running the session too. And then an example of how the leader's book and the participant book work together. On the left-hand side there, I've screenshot a section of the leader's booklet. So this is within the science section. You've asked people to watch a documentary ahead of the course, and there were some questions for people to consider. So there's a lot of discussion questions and opportunities to discuss within the course, because again, that feels like a format that people are likely to be familiar with in the context of a church small group. So you've got the questions there in the leader's guide with a little bit of guidance on what to do with anything you don't know the answer to at the bottom. On the right-hand side, the participant booklet that everyone else will have has those questions repeated again so people can see them, and also space if people want to take notes on the answers. So it's a chance to have a discussion, but some people may want to write down some of what they've discussed as well. There are also lots of links in the participant booklet, so you can give it to people as an electronic format as well as a paper format, and there are lots of links they can click on after sessions to get more information. The course starts, like quite a few carbon literacy courses, with a 1-hour documentary that was made by the BBC with David Attenborough as the presenter. So you're asked to ask people to watch that ahead of the first session. And there are different ways of doing this. You could just say to people, watch it at home on your own before you come to the first session. You could organise a screening within your church so that everyone watches it at the same time. So that becomes like an extra session of the course. If you choose to do that, you've got the option really to invite anyone. So you can invite people who've already signed up for the course, but you could also just say anyone can come and watch this. And as part of that, you could do a little plug to try and sign more people up. If they don't sign up, they've still watched a fantastic documentary and learned a lot about climate change, but they may well also sign up. So it's kind of like it's the first part of the course, but it can also be a way of advertising the course as well, if you want to. Great. An example of the activity pack, it includes this game where we ask people to look at these sources of protein and think about which do they think has the highest source of emissions, which has the lowest, and ask them to rank them. So I won't show you the answers. If you want to know the answers, you either need to get How Bad Are Bananas or come on a course. But that's just an example of the kind of thing that's in the activity pack. So again, it aims to be really interactive. It's not death by PowerPoint. You can show this as a slide. There's the option to print it out as cards, for kind of 4A4 cards that people can then move around on a table. And it's also in the activity pack. So there's different ways to show it to people. And that, again, creates quite a lot of discussion. All of the answers, if you're worrying about, you wouldn't know the answers, are in the leader's guide, as well as various pointers, ways to answer sort of typically asked questions, and places to go for more information if you get more questions. And we encourage you, as with all carbon literacy courses, to make that like a sort of group inquiry. So it might be that you go away and find out the answer if someone's got a question you don't know, but also someone else in the group might know the answer. So you can have that group discussion and figure it out together. Similarly, there's a greenhouse gases game, which again is this in the activity pack for people to look at, or you can print out each of these images on a sheet of A4. We've also provided that as a file you can print out. And again, people are using these images to try and guess the names of different greenhouse gases. So all of the images are a source of a greenhouse gas. One other thing that's in the activity pack is this. So this is what you can print out, and people can write in those circles the names of people they know in different contexts, different areas of their life, who they may have some influence over. So individual people or groups of people. And that feeds into them making 2 pledges to take action at the end of the course. And in doing that, they're looking to sort of maximize the influence they have and make the biggest impact possible in reducing emissions. So by having this kind of document, before you get to that, you're helping people to think through who is it they might influence when they come up with those actions. So there are various other things in the activity pack. There's loads more material, but that just gives you an example of the kind of thing that's in there. In terms of keeping the material up to date, because we're conscious there's a new news item about climate change in the news every day, isn't there? We future-proof the course as much as possible. So especially when we made the final version, we changed certain elements from the first version to kind of make it as future-proofed as possible, to use material that won't date. But we will also be updating it once a year. What we've also done is provided some links in the leader's guide. So if you pick it up and it's been 9 months since it was updated, and there are various links that you can check where you might just get a slightly updated statistic for certain small sections of the course as well. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is why create actions. So I would say the main way in which this differs from an ordinary kind of set of resources that you pick up for a small group in a church is that you're asked at the end to create 2 actions But also not only that, but also to write them down, submit them to the Carbon Literacy Project and receive a certificate. So it's an accredited course, and obviously most small group materials aren't accredited in that way. So just to think about why would you do that, and why would you encourage people on the course to do that? So it helps to set intention. If you're writing down actions, that can really help people to cement their decision to do something beyond the course. I think we might often think, oh yes, I'm going to go and do something, but then you sort of forget about it. If they've written it down and then they receive a certificate a month later, that can really help set their intention. I mean, they're more likely to take action. It creates accountability. So there's time in the final session to sit and write those actions together. People aren't obliged to share what they're writing, but naturally people tend to have those conversations. So then they know what each other has committed to do. So there's that accountability there. As a course leader, you could choose to create an opportunity a few months later to meet together to see how it's gone, or just have an email exchange. How's it gone? Does anyone need any help with their actions? Does anyone, come up against barriers that they need help with? So it creates that accountability to keep working together and checking in with each other, especially if you're an existing group that already meets. Creating action is simply a part of the course. It's part of the learning. It's not a sort of added on extra. So it's a little bit like if you've listened to a sermon on a Sunday, there'll often be a chance to respond in some way at the end. And we would consider that an integral part of the sermon, wouldn't we? It's not a sort of optional kind of bolt-on thing. So it's the same kind of thing, really. You get a certificate. So for some people, that might be useful evidence in the context of applying for a job. It might be useful beyond the context of their church, or applying for a volunteer role, or just showing a current employer that you've gained new skills. Yes, there's my certificate. It can also help with eco-church accreditation. So obviously the guidance for eco-church was changed back in January. So this is relevant if you're in England or Wales. I think I've spotted some people in Scotland, so it might be different for you guys. But when the criteria was updated in January, it actually references carbon literacy. So this is a little screenshot of a sample eco-church policy on eco-church's website. So they've given it as a sample policy, which you might use to base your own church's eco policy on. And you can see here, they've said, we will ensure all staff, eco team members and leadership team members receive carbon literacy training. You don't have to have that in your policy. You might have a different type of training, but they've suggested that's an option. And they've also said to offer other church members the opportunity to complete carbon literacy training or other relevant topics. So that it's suggested there, that's something that can help you tick a box on the eco-church survey. This is also, if you're on the online form for eco-church, if you're familiar with that, this is one of the questions where you can tick something. So it's the courses we run include creation care as an integral part of Christian faith. And there's more than one way of doing that, but carbon literacy is an option. Okay, I think that was my last slide. It is, yeah. So I will pass back to Jo.
Thank you, Caroline. That's wonderful. I'm going to ask Anne-Marie to do her bit now, and then we'll come to the questions after. So I am watching the questions as they come in, and I will pick them up at the end. So yeah, keep them coming. And Anne-Marie, over to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name's Anne-Marie, Anne-Marie Soulsby, and I am from the Carbon Literacy Project. Some of you I will have been in contact with already and have invited to today. So I really appreciate all of you coming along and finding out more about the Christian Congregations course. I also say thank you very much to Jo for kicking this off and hosting the webinar today, and also to Caroline for creating the materials. Caroline was also my trainer, so that is the reason why I started my carbon literacy journey. And that has led me to become the communities coordinator for the Carbon Literacy Project. So I look after all different types of communities, and obviously the faith sector is now been launched as a result of creating that community sector. So we've kind of got a little subsector within communities there, and that covers all different faith groups, and we're delighted to be able to launch this shareable course with the Christian faith group as our first faith offering. We are looking for support, and we've already sparked some interest with some of the other faith groups. So to be fair and to be equitable across all of our different groups there, we're looking to get representation with courses across them from in the future. So fingers crossed that will be coming soon, but this is a great start. And as we spoke about earlier, there will be some ways to get hold of the materials. So just to go through that briefly today, so you get an idea of what the process is. I am going to be going through just a few slides, and then it'll be open for lots of questions. So if we move on to the next slide, can you all see the slides there, by the way?
Yeah, that's all good.
Good, good, good. Okay. So first point is we're looking to make sure that we've got our invoicing set up correctly. If you are part of the Church of England, that will be through your diocese, and the diocese will need to set up an invoice with the Carbon Literacy Project in order to purchase and process certification fees for any of those participants that are looking to get a certificate, as Caroline has just outlined for you. If you are not Church of England, there will be a way to set that up through a central point through your own organisation, and that will be something that we will need to arrange with you. So that is central in order to make sure purchasing can go through for those certificates. So it's a good idea to get that sorted first. And I know there'll be a lot of questions about that, so I will come to them at the end. Then the next thing to do is to send a request through. We have got a dedicated email for you, faith@carbonliteracy.com. So please do send a request to say that you would like to get access to the Christian Congregations course to that email. And if you've got any other questions or queries, please also use that email address to send those through. If you're looking to access the course, I will send you a very simple online form to fill in. This is just so that we can capture some details to make sure that we know who's got access to the materials, and so we can manage you in terms of helping out who's got what at what stage of the process. And so it enables us to be able to manage internally our own processes as well. Very straightforward, just understanding who you are and what you would like to get access to. If you are not already carbon literate, i.e. if you have not already attended a carbon literacy course before and have submitted your information and received that certificate, we do invite you to have an hour meeting with me to walk through the materials and just to help you understand how to process those certifications, and also to fill in any forms, and also for you to get an opportunity to ask any questions one-to-one with me to help you to deliver that course. It just means that because this is a very unique offering, normally we require somebody to be certified before delivering carbon literacy, that we've broken all the rules, especially for this course, to get it out there into your community. So we want to make sure we've got as much support as we can. So inviting you to have that 1 hour meeting just to walk through the materials and get those questions answered so you're nice and confident in order to be able to deliver it to your group. Once that's complete, or if you're already carbon literate and very confident that you'll be able to go without that meeting, then you'll be sent a link to a SharePoint folder. That's basically where you click on that and all the materials will be there for you to be able to download to your own device. And then that's where you've got a copy of the materials. 5 steps to get access. Then it's all about making sure you can get delivering your training as well. As Caroline's outlined, the materials are all very super nicely organized, very intuitive, very straightforward, full of instructions. Please, please, please read all the documents first. Everything's in there that you need. So do take some time, read through all the documents. If you've attended the meeting, you should have got a lot of information through that with our one-to-one meeting and ask questions there. But if you do have any questions after reading the documents or at any other time, please do email faith@carbonliteracy.com. Then you can decide on your training schedule. Caroline's outlined whether you would like to do it over several sessions or just a couple of sessions, and split that up however you would like. Think about the dates, the times, location that work for you and your group. So maybe you already have a group in mind. Maybe you would like to advertise or ask around. So this is where you're putting your logistics together. Just also think about some practicalities there, making sure you've got things printed out in time for the number of participants that you're going to have. Make sure that you've got a laptop with a power cord and access to power, for example, or a screen if you're looking to do a presentation in the church hall. Think about some teas, coffees and biscuits, because we know what we're like when we're training. It's all thirsty and biscuit orientated work. So think about all of those things that you might need to help people to get to your location, have your location set up ready for training, and you prepared to deliver as well. Then have fun. Start delivering the course, ask questions. It's a journey of discovery. Nobody's an expert. I always talk to trainers and say, not everybody can answer every single question about climate change. Nobody, because it's impossible. And we're not asking you to do that either. We're asking you to help everybody understand, and that includes yourself. And it could take you on a massive journey about biodiversity and net gain, or it could turn you into somebody who's really interested in heat pumps. So it's a way to kind of get involved. There's lots of people that have experience, who've got questions that come along to carbon literacy. I don't have an EV, for example. I've never ridden an e-bike, but lots of people may have that experience and can tell lots of stories about their experience. So, there are experts in the room as well, so use them to your advantage. The main thing is try and stay on time, because usually people have blocked out that time for the training. So respect the training time. If there is questions that you can't answer, you may want to park them, come back to them later, or in the next session, for example. Or you might have a little sort of spin-off group. You might start a WhatsApp chat, or you might schedule another time just to go through some of the questions that came up as part of the training. So yeah, once you've had your fun, it's time to fill in those forms. This is where we're talking about the actions that Caroline mentioned earlier. So filling those in, and then also you will need to fill in an additional form just to register all the ones that you're sending in from your participants, including yourself. Then you'll need to send them along to Carbon Literacy Project, along with the details of the invoicing that we mentioned earlier. And then those forms will be sent through. If those actions meet the criteria, which hopefully everybody will, and then the certificates will be sent back to you, and then you can email them on to your participants, or you can print them out and you can take a photo, distributing them out to your group, which is always really nice. And then you can use that in some publicity, share it on social media, send it round as part of the church newsletter, all that kind of stuff. All great and nice to see. So in a brief overview this morning, hope that wasn't too much, but that is it in a nutshell of how to get hold of the materials, and also a little bit of the logistics in terms of processing. But do get in touch if you would like to speak with me. As I say, faith@carbonliteracy.com. We've also got the faith sector on our website. Anytime we also hold delivering successful carbon literacy workshops regularly throughout the month. These are free. These are designed to help people deliver carbon literacy. Clue is in the title. There is a Ticket Taylor website address that I can send you with those workshops if you'd like to go on those, and also find out straight away a bit more about how to support yourselves with delivering carbon literacy. Otherwise, it's about sending me an email and booking in the time to go through the materials and have a meeting. Very excited, guys. looking forward to all of this. One more thing, sorry, I forgot to say. We're in a time where we get lots of information, and some of that information may be a little bit off-putting. It may not give you the confidence that you need. Recently, globally, it came out as research that 81% of people want to know more about climate change and want to do something about climate action. That's the vast majority. So when you're talking to people, you're talking to people who want to know more. Maybe they haven't vocalized it externally. Maybe they're frightened of speaking up because they don't want to look like the odd person in the room. But most people want to do something about this. They want to do the right thing for the right reasons. They want to save money. They want to protect future generations. They want to be part of something where we're having somewhere nicer to live, cleaner air, cleaner water, all that kind of stuff. So, despite what you might hear outside, there are a lot of people who really, really want to do this. And again, please, if you do have any questions, just let me know. But thank you very much for letting me share that with you this morning.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and thank you, Caroline. So we're going to go through some of the questions now, and hopefully we'll get to them all and deal with all the issues that you have. There are some about the course and the content, some about the sort of certificates at the end, and then obviously the payment is a big one. But Sue asks, I'm going to bring two questions together here. It looks really good. How much content is churchy? I'm thinking it would do great in partnership with community environmental groups. And then a later question, if I can just get my hands on it, was, is information provided on the course about the biblical foundation for why Christians have a responsibility to care for creation and reduce their carbon footprint? So, Caroline, can I bring that one to you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yes. So that second question there, yeah, the first session of the course, kind of one of the first topics is why as people of faith would we care about this? And it's probably the section of the course that is most flexible in that there's various different ways to deliver it. So there's a short video from Bishop Graham Usher, which is likely to work really well if you're Church of England. There's a video that I made for the course that you can show that lasts about 8 minutes that that talks through what the Bible has to say about creation care. I know we're looking at there being other videos, short videos available from leaders within other denominations. There's also a set of cards that you can print off with quotes from Christians throughout kind of the last 2,000 years with quotes, saying things about creation care. So you can use those to provoke discussion. And it's also the kind of section, of course, where we say if something else would work better within your context, if you've got material within your own denomination, use that too. So yes, that's definitely there. Just checking I've answered the first question. Was the first question more about whether or not it would work with more general community groups?
I wonder if Anne-Marie might suggest other...
Yeah. So one of the things that Phil mentioned earlier on around Carbon Literacy Project is very much that each course is tailored towards a specific audience. So a course that is designed for somebody that works in a car manufacturing plant is very different to one for somebody who's working as a doctor in a hospital. Obviously, the science stays the same, but we're looking about bringing climate action and climate change relevant to that person in terms of their role, their responsibility, where they're at. So if you're looking at carbon literacy for community groups, it will be different to a course that has been designed specifically for Christian congregations, because that environmental group is not a church congregation, it is an environmental group. So it's about having a course that is specifically related to them, their activities and their spheres of influence, which will be different. So it doesn't really work that way. The best thing to do is we can have a chat further about how to do that. We have got a toolkit available from the Carbon Literacy Project that is for community leaders. So that is anybody who is in the role of responsibility within the community. So that could be the scout leader. It could be somebody who's the treasurer of the local Rotary Club. It could be somebody who's in charge of the local gardening club. So it's for those people who are in positions of authority that can make decisions about what kind of projects they want to fund, their strategy, what kind of activities the group is going to do. It's not for the group members themselves. So there's a difference between those two as to the type of course that they would need. The community toolkit for Community Leaders Toolkit is free for non-profits, charities and unincorporated groups that have a turnover of less than £25,000 per year. Anything above that, or any other types of organisations, any local authorities, any commercial operations, any trainer organisations, and anything that's basically not third sector, and any of those third sector parties that are above £25,000 turnover a year, there is a fee applicable. So again, if you contact me, if you're interested in using that toolkit, the toolkit again is a fully formed course. Everything is there that you need to deliver. It's a slide pack, trainer manual guide, and all the forms, running order, and everything that you need in a folder for that. So I hope that kind of explains the difference as to why a church congregation course is very much for church congregations, and other courses are therefore different for other types of audiences.
Thank you very much. Another question about the content, actually, two more questions about the content, then we'll get onto the nitty-gritty. One is, was there a reason for the decision about talking about climate change rather than climate emergency or climate crisis?
There was, yeah. When we wrote the pilot version and it was piloted, it included a certain amount of climate emergency as opposed to climate change, but it also included a section about declaring a climate emergency as a church, which linked to a TFM project which existed at the time, where you could declare a climate emergency as a church. And we took that out, and we took out that language for a couple of reasons. Partly TFM aren't updating that website anymore, so it's not really a live project. But also, when I piloted it and when a couple of other trainers piloted it, that section went down like a lead balloon. So people really didn't like the idea of the wording climate emergency, certainly in the groups that I ran it in. And they couldn't see the point in declaring a climate emergency. I think didn't feel like a solid enough tangible action, I guess, as compared to doing something practical in your church. They couldn't quite see how that would relate well to their congregation, or what benefit it would bring. So that section isn't in there anymore. We found the language of climate change worked better. Yeah.
Thanks, Caroline.
Just go on the other. We often find that this is kind of quite a big, scary subject for people, and language is quite an important nuance to have as well, because it is quite frightening for some people, and it can be quite overwhelming. There is a lot of the time the feedback that I hear is, I didn't realize it was that bad. So it can be something that people do need a bit of time to process, especially when they're thinking about the future of their children or grandchildren, for example. So climate emergency and climate crisis. Also, we get climate emergency and crisis fatigue, because it's used a lot, and then the impact is lost, because sometimes, again, it's the other end of the scale. It's scaremongered by certain media to the point where people just think, oh, well, nothing happened to me today, nothing's going to happen to me tomorrow in this crisis or emergency. So again, if we stick to something that's more palatable and more neutral, then it is more effective in terms of the language that we can use.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. I think that's most of the questions about the content. Oh no, sorry. This is one for Caroline. Is there some standardized response to emerging skeptical remarks that are particularly linked to this idea about it's the end of the world, is all part of God's plan anyway?
Yeah. We haven't got like a standard response. I think maybe because people opt to come on the course. I've never had anyone on a church-based carbon literacy course, either the diocesan or the congregations course, who's come with that view. So I know it's a view that some Christians have, but I've not come across it in the context of a church-based carbon literacy course. I've come across it once in something else I ran in a voluntary kind of position. It was a different type of course. Yeah, and it's incredibly difficult to tackle, isn't it? I just suspect because people are choosing to be there, you're unlikely to come across it. I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Joe.
Yes, I would. I would say that one of the key sections of the course is thinking about the justice element of climate change and how much of an impact climate change is already happening on people around the world. And often in that church context, people that you might have a link with because you have a partnership with a church in sub-Saharan Africa or South America. So you've got that sort of link with people who are already suffering the impacts of climate change. So even if people can't conceive of the need to do something because of the future, there is a need to do something now to help people already. So if you come across that, and it's hard to argue the theological reasons why, frankly, in my view, that's ridiculous, but you're not going to go there. But maybe talk about what's happening now and why we need to make a difference now is perhaps more helpful.
Yes, and this version of carbon literacy, more than any other that I've written, includes like more emphasis. I mean, all carbon literacy courses include something about climate justice, but I've included a lot about that because I think that's something that often resonates with Christians. Yeah, thinking about looking after your neighbour and your global neighbour, and the ways in which they're suffering tends to go down well. Yeah.
Okay. So now something about where the course exists and what do we do about printing it, and can we print it out? Is there copyright? How does that work? It's because all of the materials are available online and they don't exist in a printed form unless a course leader prints them out. That's right, isn't it?
Yes. So Anne-Marie, you'll send it to people electronically, won't you? And then they print it out themselves.
Yes.
So it will come to people as files, so they don't have to go searching on the internet for them. There's not links. They'll be sent to you as a PDF, or is that right? PDF format?
No, so basically it's a SharePoint folder. So it is a link to an online folder, like an online drive folder. And in there will be the different documents. So then you can download them and that will be on your device. And then you can print from there.
Okay, so hopefully that answers the questions. I think there are going to be some hiccups along the way where a church wants to do it that is not particularly comfortable with that format. So this is the space really where I need to say to some of my colleagues in the diocesan environment officers is maybe where we need to have that little bit of a link between what's going on in churches so that you might be able to help them or support them to get hold of the materials. And that also, when we come to setting up the payments, which I think I'll address that now while I'm here. There was a question about can an individual church set up the payment? And if we have all these individual churches, the amount of work that's involved in processing all those invoices is just too much. So what we're asking you to do is to arrange the payments through the diocese. And I want we've got a form that Anne-Marie has created so that a diocese can fill the information in. And now I've shared this conversation with you, we can have those conversations. And I'm very happy to have those conversations with dioceses or with working with a diocesan environment officer to have that conversation and say, can we set up this payment system so that then your parishes can go through that. So that's a conversation for after this meeting that we'll take that forward. And then for the denominations, each denomination will need to set up with the Carbon Literacy Project an invoice system, and then the denominations work through that way. So again, if there's problems or questions with that, you can come to me and I'll try and point you in the right direction for the right person who can help that be set up. So I'll put my email in the link so we can have those conversations and take them forward. But there is a question about how much it's going to cost, which I will pass that question to Anne-Marie.
Yeah, so basically that will be based on the turnover of the organisation. So below 250,000, it is £10 per certificate, and above that, it is £15.
So where are you, where is the organisation? Is it the church or the diocese or the Church of England?
It's the where the invoice comes in.
So that'll be the diocese then. So
For Church of England, and obviously then we would look at the other denominations based on that process. Often we find that if people are having a course for free, that participants don't mind paying that £15 themselves for the certificate, because it's not only useful for all the things that Caroline said, it can actually help with university applications, job applications, and once you are carbon literate as well, then that allows you to then start delivering other carbon literacy courses too. So it's a really good way to sort of catalyze that training, start getting that going through the community. So you may train somebody who works in a school, and then they become carbon literate, and then they can start delivering in their school environment using some of our school materials, for example. So it's a really massive opportunity here to create a whole wave of carbon literacy coming from our Christian faith community.
thank you. So can you repeat the cost? So running the course is free.
Yes.
But it's being certified that is there a cost? So can you repeat those costs again?
Yes. So if the organisation that is registered for the invoice has a turnover of less than £250,000 per year, it is £10. Above that, it is £15.
Thank you. And then there was a question that said, what do we do if we've already done all of these steps? But I have to say, no one in the room has done all of these steps, because one of the steps is to email Anne-Marie and ask to access the course and fill in the form that the Carbon Literacy Project has created. So even if you are already certified, you still need to do those steps. You need to contact the Carbon Literacy Project using that faith@carbonliteracy.com email address, and then there will be a form to fill in, because that then points the Carbon Literacy Project in the right direction for who's applied, which diocese or which denomination. You can still have that hour conversation with Anne-Marie, which I think would be very useful to have a walk through the materials. But the only bit that you can skip if you've already been certified is that 1 hour conversation with Anne-Marie. All the other steps you'll still need to do. Is that right? Is that fair, Anne-Marie?
Absolutely. Yeah, spot on, Jo.
Perfect. Right. And the cost is, yeah, as you've replied, it's £15 per certificate. So when you filled in so as Caroline said in one of the answers to the questions, there is time in one of the sessions for people to have a look at the participant form. You can fill it in together, and then time for people to think about what their actions, and then the course leader will send them back to the Carbon Literacy Project, and the church is probably going to have to pay the diocese, and then the diocese will pay that invoice when it comes. So this is why you need that contact with the Carbon Literacy Project at that point, because you need to know where to send the form back to, and you need to have there's a very simple form where you can list the names of everyone who is applying to be certified, and that form is really important because what you write on there appears on the certificate. So you don't want the participants in your course to have the wrong name on their certificate. That would be very upsetting. So that's why it's is a form, so you get it in, so we all get it right. So that contact with the Carbon Literacy Project is really important to keep things running smoothly. If there's anything else you need to say about that at that stage. I don't think so.
Oh, I think we're all good.
Are there any more questions?
There's one about promotional material to present to churches to encourage them to take it up. I don't know if that was something that you might want to look at.
So at the moment, we haven't created any promotional materials because there is already quite a high demand for this course, and we want to just roll it out for a little while and make sure we've ironed out the wrinkles, especially around working out the payment system, before we start advertising it much more widely. So we're going to let the current appetite for it run its course. We'll get people signed up, we'll get courses run, we'll make sure the payment system is working, and we've had these conversations with different dioceses to get them on side. If it has a life of its own, we'll just let it run. If we feel at that point we've dealt with all that and then it's gone a little bit quiet, then we'll think about some promotional materials.
Can I just add to that, Jo?
Yeah, please do.
I think you're meaning to promote it so that lots of more churches are aware it exists. But I wonder if the person who asked the question meant, is there some text they can use to just invite their local church members to it? I think that's what Margaret maybe meant.
That's a good
yeah.
Yes.
And the answer, Margaret, is there isn't, but there probably should be. So we could write some draft text which you could put in an email or put in your notices, for example. If that's helpful, that would be a fairly easy thing to create.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Great. Oh yeah, good. Yeah, so definitely available for Baptist Church. Just going back to the question.
Just as one about needing to update it annually. No, the materials are updated annually. You don't need to take the course every time that the materials are updated. Once you're carbon literate, you're carbon literate. If you did want to access the materials and refresh yourself at that point, you would be able to do so. So that would be no problem. But there's no need to repeat the course if it has been updated.
Thank you. A question about getting the name of the diocese right. So the name of the diocese needs to be right on the form that you fill in at the very beginning when you want to access the course. But luckily, we've created a drop-down menu, so you can't get it wrong. So that's okay there. The certificate form at the end is about getting the name of the participant right, because you'll send them a form and it'll have their name on it and you don't want to have made a spelling mistake. So I hope I've cleared that one up. Do we want to say anything about accreditation as an organisation? There's a question there. I know you've said yes, but do you want to say anything tell people about that?
Yeah, so there is an accreditation for organisations to apply for that recognises the fact that they've achieved a level of carbon literacy within their organisation, and also there are a few other requirements in order to meet either a bronze, a silver, gold, or platinum carbon literate organisation accreditation. I can send details out to that. There is a fee for becoming an accredited organisation, but there is also an award ceremony. So it is a great way to publicise the fact that you've taken lots of people through the carbon literacy journey. I can send that document out as well regarding just a little brochure to go through that in more detail. And yeah, that's something that maybe you want to work towards as a denomination. So there are already some CLO accredited denominations, Methodists, out there. So yes, that's definitely something that is possible.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm going to speak this answer rather than type it. Someone's saying that their climate group is more or less an overlap with members of their Baptist church. Would the course work in that setting?
Yeah, that's fine. If they are members of the congregation, then it will be regarding their role in that setting, as opposed to them as the environmental group. It would be then nice to see if they would then type carbon literacy as the group and start maybe training people using a course that they can create and accredit themselves, or they could have a look at getting hold of the community leaders course perhaps and use that within their community to train those leaders. So yeah, as long as they're already part of the congregation and will be trained in that perspective. I know people wear lots of hats, so yeah, it would then be fine to train them in those circumstances. If they were not part of the congregation, that's when it wouldn't apply.
Yeah, and quite often people are part of climate groups as an expression of their faith, aren't they? So that's why that happens.
Yeah.
There is a question about if someone has done the course and then says, "Oh, I don't want to pay £15." I think I'll come in with that. We want to encourage people to get the certificate and to fill in the forms and the pledges and take the actions. Make the commitment to take the actions. So there's a conversation there. I wonder about if a home group has decided off its own back, we're going to run this course, then that might be a bit more tricky. But if a church has said, let's do this together, then is there a conversation about the church contributing to people's payments? Or possibly, if you were brave, is there a conversation about the diocese contributing? So if someone isn't going to pay, then you can't make them pay. But I wonder if there's an opportunity to take ownership by the church rather than the individuals and say, we'll support, subsidise or pay for. But that will have to happen on an individual basis in individual churches as you have those conversations. But that's my suggestion.
I can just jump in as well and say that Carbon Literacy has community pot funding rounds. Unfortunately, the last one, the submission has just passed, and that was for organisations, including faith groups, in the Manchester area. So do keep your eye open. There are opportunities to get funding for carbon literacy training from the Carbon Literacy Project as and when those do pop up. But there also could be local funding available as well. I do know some town councils, for example, have a small budget to fund organisations, and there may also be some other funding opportunities. There are people, unfortunately, yes, that do have low incomes in our society. There are also people who have larger incomes in our society as well, and sometimes a sponsorship or a donation is most welcome in those circumstances too.
Thank you. Someone's saying, can you send the links in the chat? What I'll do is I'll save the chat afterwards, and when I won't send you all the chat, but I will extract the links, and when I share a link to the recording, then I will also share the links that were in the chat. I think I've picked up all the questions, but if anyone thinks they've typed something in the chat that didn't get a proper answer, or you've still got a question, can you raise your hand and then you'll jump to the front of my screen and I'll be able to see you. No, I think that's it.
There's one more question just got in. I'm just
okay. Oh yes, here we go.
Yeah. So this course is specifically for Christian congregations. Once you're carbon literacy certified, it's not just a case of just being able to give people a course. It has to come through the process in terms of requesting. And if it isn't somebody who's in a Christian congregation space, the course would not be appropriate for them. The best thing to do is to talk to me, and we can find some support and the right courses for those particular types of groups people that you are looking to support. For example, as I mentioned earlier, we've got materials for schools, we've got materials for people in housing, who work in local authorities, and we've got people who work in healthcare, for example. So we always want to make sure that we can support people to become carbon literate. However, we want to make sure that it's appropriate for them. So rather than just distributing the materials to somebody else, it's all about saying, can we make sure that the materials are used for the purpose that they've been acquired for? There are terms and conditions that you do need to agree to in terms of material distribution. So it is a case of once that you have trained your Christian congregation groups, and if you're really excited to do more carbon literacy training, then please do speak to us and we can support you to get that going in the best way possible. And I'm really keen to help you on that and make sure that we've got as many people certified as possible.
Thank you very much. I think that's it now. That's all the questions. So in the chat was the link to the website where you can find more information about this, and I will also, when I share the recording, share the email address that Anne-Marie gave to you, so you can start finding out about it that way. I'll contact diocese environment officers so we can start to have those conversations with our diocese about getting a payment set up. If you're from a different denomination, then we'll have a conversation, see how we get that going as well. And I just want to say at this point, thank you so much to Anne-Marie and Caroline for all the work that you've put into making this happen. And I just want to wish you all good luck and have fun. And I hope we hear about lots and lots of courses being run around the country. That's amazing. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Bye.